Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a viewer ask a question about which is better, the 223 or 5.56. They're almost identical rounds. That's a whole other topic. Many rifles are chambered to shoot both, including most AR-15s versus the 308 Winchester. And there they are side by side. Actually, this is kind of a difficult question to answer, and the reason is that it really depends on what you're doing. The thing to keep in mind is that these are two of the absolutely most popular rifle rounds around the world for both hunting, military applications, and in some cases even self-defense, home defense, property defense, things like that. Part of the thing you've got to keep in mind, they're both fairly short for rifle rounds, which means that they allow for shorter actions for even hunting, for semi-auto, full auto, everything else. So they allow faster rates of fire for auto-loading rifles, and they require less weight in the rifle in terms of the receivers, bolt carrier groups, things like that. Even for bolt action rifles, you can get a shorter stroke with either one of these than you can with a lot of other more popular hunting rounds, which can shave a few ounces off of the rifle that you have to carry in the field. Now, the thing to remember is that, again, they're used for a lot of similar applications, but the biggest difference, obviously, one is bigger and heavier and more powerful, and the other is lighter, considerably lighter, weaker, and less powerful. So that's what you have to look at. But what are the actual real differences here? One of the things you'll notice is that their drop rates are pretty similar at close range. I'm going to put a chart here for you guys, which I got from a guy named Larry Willis. He made a really good chart on this using match grade rounds, because obviously if you're trying to shoot any sort of really precise shots and for any sort of distance, you're going to be using match ammo, and even the military adopts that same philosophy, not just competitive shooters. So you can see the difference there. The 223 that he's got there with a 69 grain Sierra Match King is moving about 200 feet per second faster than a 175 Sierra Match King in the 308. You'll notice that for the first 300 to 400 yards, their drop rates are virtually identical. When you start hitting 500 yards and out, the 308 starts to dominate. It has a lower drop rate. Now, drop rate doesn't actually matter with a good scope if you know the exact range of your target, but a lot of people aren't when they're shooting an animal, a paper target, or even a military application may not have a rangefinder. And this is going to be particularly true when you're out hunting animals. You don't have a rangefinder oftentimes, or you can't afford one, or you don't have one in the field. So you're only going to be able to get a good estimate of the range using different methods like mil-dot reticles, eyeballing things, whatever. If you're using the flatter shooting round at really long distance, the 308, it requires less guesswork, meaning you don't have to get as precise because it's more forgiving on the drop rate. Meaning if you miss it by 30 or 40 yards, you're still going to be closer than you are with the 308 versus the 5.56. Another factor to consider is sheer amount of power and kinetic energy. The 308 has a bullet that is approximately 2.5 times as heavy and as big. It is more aerodynamic. If you'll notice, even those list the ballistic coefficient for match rounds, the 308 has a much higher ballistic coefficient, meaning it's more aerodynamic. It doesn't slow down as fast. Even if they're starting at the same velocity, it's going to retain that velocity better. It's going to have more power downrange, and that's going to become more and more pronounced the further out you go. So when you're looking at actual stopping power on any sort of target, you're going to maintain more energy as you go further with an already much more powerful, bigger round, but it's going to keep a higher percentage of it every 100 yards. So downrange, just flat out more power, more energy, more penetration. When you get in close, the same thing. You still have 2.5 times, maybe 2 to 2.5 times as much kinetic energy with the 308. It is simply more powerful. It has better barrier defeating, better penetrating, all around better as far as power, stopping power, aerodynamics, cuts through wind drift better, more accurate at long range overall. Now, the difference there is, of course, it has some drawbacks. It has far more recoil. Again, if you've got more kinetic energy, you've got more recoil. Well, more recoil is going to, in some cases, reduce potential for accuracy, particularly really tight precision shots. Particularly ones that aren't braced. You're not set up off of a bench rest, you're not set up off of a bipod, you're standing or doing whatever else it is you're doing. The extra recoil could make it less precise. And that matters for certain types of hunting and certain types of match shooting. Also, you're going to have slower follow-up shots. The rifle's going to move more. It's going to be harder to fire it with any degree of rapidness. It's just going to be more difficult to fire rapidly and get follow-up shots on any sort of target. So That's going to be a big factor on the recoil. The other thing to look at is going to be weight and cost of ammunition. The 308 weighs, again, 2 to 2.5 times as much as the 223 or 5.56 does. If you're trying to carry around large amounts of ammo and magazines for, again, any application, whether it's a raw scenario, military, or whatever else, it is going to be a nightmare in comparison to try to carry hundreds of rounds of 308. And the price difference is about half. You can get twice as much or make twice as much 223 or 5.56 as you can 308. So those are factors in the military, definitely, but they're factors for you also, because again, it's about you can carry twice as much ammo, you can afford twice as much ammo on the same budget, and that matters even for target practice purposes, because if you're going to shoot thousands of rounds every year to practice with, to plink with, everything else, this is going to be far more cost effective than this. And again, if you're going to try to carry ammo, whether it's a military situation or it's going to be a raw scenario or whatever else, you can carry a lot more ammo with this. Now, for hunting purposes, you need to look at the size of your game. It is generally for varminting. The 223 is one of the premier varminting rounds out there, whereas in the 308 is probably one of the best big game rounds. You can kill anything in North America with good shot placement and good ammo selection with the 308. Bears, moose, elk, whatever. Again, proper ammo and shot placement. However, it isn't as preferred for varminting, where you're trying to make little, small, precise shots at maybe 100 yards, where you're trying to hit a rabbit or a coyote in the head, or you're trying to do precise shots like that, or even popping a squirrel or something. You're simply going to find the 223 to be better, because when you're trying to make little sub 1 inch shots at pretty moderate distances like 75 or 100 yards, the lower recoil, particularly shooting it offhand or on the move in the field, makes the 223 vastly superior for that style of hunting. It just doesn't have the power to stop a lot of big game, even though in theory with the right hand loads, the right shot placement, there are a lot of really big game you could hypothetically kill with this round. A lot of states actually have it outlawed because your odds of doing it are much lower, and they don't want unhumane kills, and so in many places it is actually illegal to hunt big game or even deer, or even smaller deer with this cartridge. So asking which is better, well, it all depends. The advantages of the 308, it cuts through the wind better, has less wind drift, has less drop rate at extreme ranges, it has more penetration, more kinetic energy, more stopping power, but it also has more recoil, it costs a lot more, and the ammo is heavier. So those are the pros and cons of each of these, and you have to weigh out for yourself what it is you're going to use it for and why, and which one you want. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.